fellow readers, to mid-September. Yay! Can we just take a pause to reflect on the fact that in 2 weeks we're going to be in October, and in a month and a half it's going to be Halloween, and then in a little over 2 months it's Thanksgiving, and in 3 months it's Christmas? Where is this year gone? Oh, I don't know. Moving on to the point of this video. So I thought, since I had 8 books on my TBR for the month of September, I thought I would give you a mid-September wrap-up and review on the books that I have finished. So the first book that I finished is Austenland by Shannon Hale, and I don't have my copy anymore because I had to return it to the library, but I have an awesome picture on my Nook of the copy that they have there. There it is. There. And can I just say, first of all, this is the movie cover, and I don't really like movie covers for books because I just don't. I just don't. Okay, moving on. That's not even part of the review. So that's just, a little tidbit that I threw in there for you. So Austenland by Shannon Hale, it's about this girl who is in her early 30s, and she's successful, she has a great job, she loves life, but the only thing is that she never has been successful in love. And she even says that the reason why is because she absolutely loves Mr. Darcy. And she measures every other guy that she has dated up to Mr. Darcy, and they've all completely failed. So her great aunt sends her to Austenland, a place where she submerges herself into the world of 1816, and she wears period clothing and does period activities and basically lives in the world of Jane Austen. And she says, this is going to be my last hurrah with this fantasy, and finally and forever I'm going to put behind me Mr. Darcy. And she goes, and it's just this fun adventure that she goes on, and she realizes that even though as great as a fantasy can be, that reality may just be a little bit better. And so if you like Pride and Prejudice, or like, the movies, or even if you just like a good love story, then you should pick up Austenland by Shannon Hale. The second book that I finished in September is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, and this book was so good. Oh my goodness, this book was so good. So good. It's by far one of my favorite books in the year. It's one of only a handful of books that I've given a 5 out of 5 on. It is a book about what it would be like if aliens invaded the Earth, but in a way that is completely different than what you would expect. It's so good. And Rick Yancey, he does a great job of developing characters and driving the plot and putting you into the world that you just really feel what it's like to be alone, and what it would be like to not really know if you meet someone, if they are who they say they are, and who you can trust, and how you should fight. And it's just so good. And then the thing that I wasn't expecting to like was, and I didn't even know it was going to do this, was that he switches back and forth between different narratives. And I don't typically like books that have more than one narrator. And because it's just, I tend to prefer one character over the other when I do that. But the way that Rick Yancey did it, it was done in such a way that you're like, there's no other way that he could have written this book. There's no other way that he could have told this story. So it's really good. If you haven't picked it up, you should, because it's amazing, and I'm so excited to read the second one. And I really hope that my library gets it to me by October so I can have it on my TBR. The third book that I finished was nothing like the first two, and that is A Sensible Arrangement by Tracy Peterson. When I say it was nothing like the other two, I mean it wasn't very good. I should have, when I got into like 10 pages of it and I was already annoyed by the characters, was frustrated by the dialogue, and just not interested, I should have just put it down and moved on. But I was like, maybe it's going to get better, because sometimes books you gotta push through the first few pages to get to something good. And then I pushed so far that I was already halfway through it, and I was like, I just have to finish this book. And so it took me a week to finish this book. I finished Austenland and Fifth Wave in the first week of September. This one took me an entire week to finish because I didn't want to read it. It was, ugh. Yeah. So it's about this girl, Marty. Yes, Marty. She answers an ad for a mail order bride, basically. Marries this guy, and you would think that it would be just about their love story. And if it was just about their love story, if that was the main plot that was driving the story, it would have actually been decent. But their love story actually takes not just backseat, but like back in the bus backseat to everything else. So yeah, it wasn't good. The funny thing that I do have to say about this is if you read my September TBR, you remember that I mainly talked about the fact that there are mountains on this here book. I said it was frustrating because it was supposed to be set in Texas and there's mountains, and so I actually didn't read the back of this before I started talking about it. And the first line, no joke, talks about how she's a Lone Star bride leaving her ranch in Texas to head to Denver. So if I had read that, I wouldn't have, been making fun of it. So, moving on. We're just gonna put that one down and just move on. So the fourth book that I picked up is The Elite by Kiera Cass, the second book in the Selection series. And most people say that this was their least favorite in the series. For me, I enjoyed this more than the Selection. I felt like there was more depth to the story. You got to experience more of not just the relationship aspect of the story, but you got to see more of the country, the politics, all of that. And even though there are flaws in this book, it just was so much fun, and it was such a breath of fresh air to read something that was really enjoyable that I could just devour after reading something that was so hard to get through. So I highly recommend the Selection series. And the fifth book I read was, this shouldn't come as any surprise, was The One by Kiera Cass. So this book wasn't originally on my TBR, but A Moment in Time by Tracy Peterson was the second book in the After a Sensible Arrangement. And since I didn't like this book so much, I decided I'm not going to even attempt to start this book because I don't want another week of not enjoying reading. So I threw that one out the window, not literally, but I threw it out and decided to replace it with The One. I liked how the story ended, and it was so good. I really like the Selection series. So if you like romance, if you like The Bachelor, if you like dystopian, if you want something that's just easy and fun, then I would suggest picking up the Selection series. So I have 3 more books on my list, and that is Stephen King's On Writing, The Throne of Glass by, I'm really sorry, Sarah J. Maas, and Firefly by Kristen Hanna. And so I'm really excited to finish the books on my TBR. So stay tuned for the end of the month for a full wrap-up and review on the other books. And happy reading, guys, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Yay! I don't know what that was. Bye!